Hey, Nate Truman here with lockhisheart.com, and in this video, we're going to talk about 5 ways to make him want you more. Now, this is something that I'm asked constantly through my newsletter, through the website, through the Facebook page, from women who feel like the spark has faded, and it's a very common theme. Most relationships kind of get to this point. The honeymoon period wears off, or that initial dating phase when everything's exciting kind of wears off. And so it's a very natural question. So the first tip I have is to listen better. Now, before I start into this, I want to point out that a lot of times what I've noticed is women usually want to approach fixing their relationships by asking, what can I get my boyfriend or my husband to do to change? And that's really the wrong way to look at things or to go about things. And so most of my advice, and this episode is no different, is focused on things that you can do, things that you can control, because it's very natural for people to resist change, or to even resist doing something when someone else is telling them to do it. And you've probably noticed that yourself. I mean, how much do you like to do it if, I don't know, say your boyfriend or your husband comes home and, tells you that the house is looking messy, or, why are there dishes everywhere, that type of thing. You probably don't like it at all to be told to do something. And so it's not really effective to go about trying to improve things by focusing on, how can I get my boyfriend to change, or how can I get my husband to start doing this? So my whole approach is you need to try to affect change by becoming the change that you want to see in your relationship. And that comes down to doing things that are within your control. Okay, so back to tip number 1. The first tip is to listen better. So, as men, we understand that in general, women like to talk more than we do, and that's fine. I mean, we expect that. We expect to hear more about your day than we want to talk about our day. That's fine. We all know that. But when we do have something that we want to tell you, when your husband or your boyfriend starts talking to you about something, you need to give him the same consideration that you want in return, which means you need to actually listen to what he's saying. And one thing that I see a lot, I don't know why this happens, but it seems like women get reminded of things that they wanted to talk to their man about when their man is telling them something. Like if your boyfriend's telling you a story about something that happened to him at work, or about a conversation that he had with his mom, or a conversation he had with his friend, it seems like women want to jump in a lot, because as they're going, it reminds them of things that they were going to bring up and talk to their husband about. But you need to avoid doing that, because it's obviously annoying to the person that's trying to tell you their story. So don't interrupt, just listen to what they're saying, and actually follow along and listen. Another thing that I see a lot is, a bad listener will ask a lot of clarifying questions, and these are usually things that have already been mentioned by the speaker. So you need to really listen and just avoid that, because the more interruptions, whether it's something you've been reminded of that you want to bring up, or even just a comment or a question about the story that he's telling you, just really try to listen, because most of the time that stuff has already been covered, and it just makes the person telling you feel like, you're not listening, because you're not. Tip number 2 is mutual respect. And this kind of goes back to tip number 1, but in a more specific way here. This is a big thing that I see in relationships. You don't have to love your husband's or your boyfriend's friends and family as much as you love your own friends and family. But, don't don't remind them how much that your boyfriend's friends bug you every time he mentions them. That gets extremely annoying. And even sometimes your man might vent to you about how his friends were annoying him or how annoying his family is to him. But that's not a free license to just unleash the floodgates of how much they bother you, and then just go off on how annoying you think they are and all the things that they do that you think are annoying. Because it's one of those things where it's okay for them, because it's their friends or family, it's okay for them to vent sometimes about it. But at the same, and it seems kind of stupid, but it's just the way it is, and it's the same way with you. If you're venting about your mom or your sisters or your friends, even though you're kind of ripping on them to make yourself feel better or whatever, which is fine, it's normal. If your husband or your boyfriend starts doing that, it kind of bothers you, even though you realize, okay, I was just ripping on him, but it's not, it bugs you on some level that they are ripping on your own friends or family. So don't do that to them. The main lesson here is just to be pleasant. Just in general, try to be a pleasant, fun person to be around. And one of the best ways to do that is, to listen. If your husband or your boyfriend is venting about their friends or family, just listen and actually listen to what they're saying. And, you don't really need to really comment on, you can say, yeah, and that's annoying, or yeah, that's frustrating, but you don't want to go into your own tirade about how annoying your husband's mom is. This same idea applies to waiters when you're out in public, or service type people, valets, things like that. You always want to be respectful, and this goes back to just being pleasant. Don't talk down to other people. If your man is a decent person, even if he doesn't say anything about it, this will be a huge turnoff. And this is really big when you're first dating somebody. You really need to check yourself and analyze how you treat people. Treat people that you're, quote unquote, you think you're above them, even though most people would never say that. All you have to do is watch people in restaurants, and a lot of people are very rude to waiters or servers. And anyone normal notices that behavior, and it's very unbecoming. It's a huge turnoff, especially if you're newly dating someone. The next tip I have, tip number 3, is to be confident, not jealous. Nothing is sexier than a confident woman, and true confidence really can trump supermodel looks. Some of the most popular actresses right now are, for example, Jennifer Lawrence, or I can't think of her name. The girl from Harry Potter. And let's see, who are the other ones? Emma Stone. Now, those women, they are pretty, they're beautiful, but they're not the most textbook gorgeous women that have ever been, in Hollywood or been in the public eye. They're not, but they are some of the most popular, rated highly in these different, Maxims, top 100 sexiest women type thing. And it's because they're just, when you see them on these talk shows, they're just fun. You can just tell that they're fun to be around, and they're extremely confident. So one of the telltale signs of an insecure woman is if you go out on a date with a woman and she's constantly scanning the room, trying to size up the competition, so to speak, and just not really present, you can just tell she's worried about, how do I look compared to that girl, or is she prettier than me? They're just constantly thinking about these external things. They're not there in the moment. They're not really listening. They're not really engaged in the conversation. And that just goes back to confidence. So in another aspect of this, if you go places with your boyfriend or your husband to either work parties or parties with his friends, you need to be able to talk to strangers or people that you don't know And you need to be able to do that without having to cling to your man's side every single minute. Again, this is really important. Most people get to this point, dating someone for a while, or if it's your husband and you've been married for years or whatever. But this really comes into play when you're newly dating someone. If you act like a Klingon to, a guy that you're on your third or your fourth date with, and you're going places for him to introduce you to his friends, and you just act kind of weird and nervous if he's not standing right by your side, that's going to be, he's going to get to talk from his friends eventually, like, I don't know if she's right for you, dude. Just stuff like that. So you need to be able to be comfortable in your own skin and be able to interact with people. Again, just be warm and pleasant to anyone that you meet, and not have to be holding hands with your date the entire time. Tip number 4 is to not act like his mother. If men wanted someone to treat them like their mom does, they wouldn't have ever have moved out. So this obviously just means not micromanaging him. You need to learn to ignore some of his harmless habits. If he's done things a certain way up to this point in life, he's gotten by doing it that way without you being around. And you should think of things in terms of a scale of 10. If something that he does is on a 10 on the importance scale to you, or an 8 or a 9, that's worth having a discussion about and really letting him know how you feel about it. But if it's something benign that doesn't really matter in the scheme of things, like, he might put his dirty workout clothes in one part of the house, maybe in his office or whatever it may be, and put his regular clothes that are dirty somewhere else, and that drives you crazy, and he just keeps doing that week after week, you might just want to let that one go, because that can be really annoying to him to keep getting nagged about it. And if it's something that really isn't, harming the relationship or anything like that, and that's always the way he's done it, then you should learn to let those types of things go. Another thing that we see a lot is with household stuff. Now, most men at this point in time they're completely fine with helping out around the house. I mean, realistically, it should be a 50-50 thing, right? So at the same time, it's one of those detail-oriented things that women are better at. And what we see a lot is men will be willing to help out, and clean or whatever it is. But the women have a certain way of doing things. And so when the husband or boyfriend tries to help, he just gets scolded the whole time about how he's doing a crappy job or he's not doing it the right way. Now, that's pretty counterproductive. I mean, if the main thing you care about is that just to see that he's willing to help out, then let him clean the downstairs bathroom and not do it exactly the way that you do it, and just thank him for being willing to help. That's more productive to the relationship than just treating him like his mom, basically. So all you have to do is ask yourself, what would his mom say about this? And then don't do that. And sometimes that applies and it would be the same advice, but use your own judgment in that. Tip number 5, this is a big one. Surprises work. What I mean by this is a lot of times what we'll see is that women constantly, especially when it gets to this point that we're talking about, kind of the spark wears off, the newness of the relationship or the exciting part of the relationship is kind of winding down, and you're getting in, maybe you've moved in together or you're newly married, and by that point just the daily grind becomes the norm instead of just seeing each other's best selves for 2 hours on Friday night when you're just dating. So one thing that we'll see a lot is women start to complain to their partner about, why don't you do anything romantic anymore? And just asking for him to do spontaneous romantic things. That in itself is kind of kind of a weird way to approach it. You don't do anything spontaneous, or you don't surprise me, so start doing it. Well, it's not really a surprise at that point. One of the best ways to deal with this issue, because I do agree that those things should take place to keep a relationship exciting and keep that spark there. And some guys are good at it. Some guys keep doing this kind of stuff. And if you're lucky enough to be dating or married to someone who does this, then good for you. I mean, you should reciprocate, make sure that he knows you appreciate that kind of thing, because more often than not, that's not really the case. Men just aren't, we're men. You know how that goes. One of the best things to do is to beat him to the punch on this. And this will work 10 times better than verbally telling him that you want him to do spontaneous, nice things for you. Just do some nice things for him instead. One thing that we've seen is, almost without exception, if you will do 3 nice things for him without expecting anything in return, or just treat it as an experiment if you want. Do 3 nice things for him over the course of a week or 2, and don't mention anything about him returning the favor or anything like that. And almost always he'll get it's not even so much that he's getting the hint that you want him to do this stuff. It's the law of reciprocation. He will feel obligated to start doing some surprises, some nice things for you. It's by far the most effective thing you can do to kind of jumpstart this, the surprise, romantic, spontaneous type things in your relationship again. So try that out. All right, so for more videos and articles and tips like this kind of stuff, you can go to lockhisheart.com. You can go to lockhisheart.com/subscribe. That's the best way, because you'll be notified by email of new articles and podcasts and videos and stuff like that. You can also check out my best-selling ebook on Amazon.com. It's called Read Him Like a Book. You can just type in those words, just search Amazon for Read Him Like a Book, and it'll be the first result that pops up. So thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you around on the site more.